What if the quietest nurse in the entire clinic was actually the most dangerous person in the building? What if the woman everyone called slow had spent years learning how to wait for exactly the right moment? At the expensive Eastridge Medical Center, hesitation was treated almost like a crime. Doctors were expected to move quickly. Nurses were expected to respond immediately. Every decision had to be clean, confident, and fast. And in that environment, one nurse had become the subject of quiet jokes. Her name was Mara Bennett. She was careful, almost painfully careful. She checked medication labels twice. She inspected medical equipment before using it. She looked down every hallway before turning a corner. And she never seemed to hurry. To most people, those habits looked like weakness. To Dr. Adrian Mercer, they were proof that Mara did not belong on his floor. Dr. Mercer controlled the third floor of Eastridge Medical Center with the confidence of a man who believed every room belonged to him. He was respected. He was experienced. And he had developed a reputation for making people uncomfortable without ever raising his voice. That morning, Mara was standing beside the medication station when Mercer walked toward her. Several nurses were nearby. 2 doctors were checking charts. Everyone could hear him. "I've been waiting 12 minutes. Mercer said. Mara looked up. For what should have taken 2. Nobody moved. Mercer glanced at the medication tray in front of her. In a facility like this, 12 minutes is not careful. It's inefficient. A nurse near the counter lowered her eyes. Someone gave a nervous little laugh. Mara simply nodded. "I'm sorry, doctor." Mercer shook his head. "You always say that." Mara said nothing. "Maybe one day," he continued, "you'll learn that being slow doesn't make you precise." The hallway became even quieter. Mercer turned away as if the matter had been settled. Mara returned to her work. She did not argue. She did not defend herself. She did not even look angry. But a new nurse named Tessa Monroe had been watching. And unlike everyone else, Tessa noticed something strange. Mara's face had not changed. Not when Mercer insulted her. Not when people laughed. Not when everyone looked at her. She had simply listened. And somehow, Tessa could not stop wondering why. Tessa approached her after the others left. "Are you okay?" Mara looked at her. For a moment, Tessa thought she might not answer. Then Mara smiled faintly. "Thank you." That was all. Tessa nodded and returned to her duties. But the answer stayed in her mind. Because Mara had not said, "I'm fine." She had said, "Thank you." As if someone asking that simple question mattered more than Tessa could possibly understand. For weeks, Tessa had noticed little things about Mara. Things that did not fit the image Mercer had created. Mara was slow, but never lost. She was quiet but never unaware. She was cautious but never confused. When a metal tray fell 3 rooms away, everyone on the floor jumped. Mara did not. Her breathing simply became slower. When a supply cart rattled at the end of the hallway, her eyes moved toward it before anyone else noticed the sound. When she stood in a room, she almost always positioned herself where she could see the entrance. She never sat with her back toward a door. And there was a thin scar on the inside of her left wrist. Nobody knew where it came from. Mercer saw none of this. Or perhaps he saw it and misunderstood it. To him, Mara was simply a nurse who took too long to make decisions. That afternoon, everything changed. The third-floor hallway was busy. Patients were resting. Monitors were beeping. Doctors were moving between rooms. Visitors spoke quietly near the elevators. Then a sound came from downstairs. It was faint. A dull impact. Then another. Then a short mechanical noise. Most people barely noticed. Mara stopped walking. Completely. Her expression changed. Not into fear. Into recognition. Tessa saw it. She was standing near the supply room when Mara suddenly turned toward the stairwell. Mara knew that sound. She had heard it before. Long before Eastridge. Long before nursing. Long before she had decided to build a quiet life. The sounds were gunshots. Suppressed gunshots. And they had come from the main entrance. Mercer looked up from a chart. What was that? Nobody answered. Then another sound came from below. This time, everyone heard it. People began moving. Mercer immediately ordered the staff into rooms. Lock the doors. His voice was sharper than usual. Patients started asking questions. A physician moved toward the nurse's station. Tessa froze. Mara did not. She was already thinking. There were only a few reasons armed men would enter a medical facility, and one patient on the third floor had a special security designation. Room 318. Elliot Grant. He had arrived 3 days earlier. His paperwork was unusual. His visitors were restricted. His admission had been handled through a separate administrative channel. Most staff knew only that he required privacy. Mara knew more. She had recognized the pattern immediately. Elliot Grant was a protected witness. And if armed men had entered through the front door, they were probably not looking for medicine. They were looking for him. Mara turned toward Tessa. Get 2 saline bags. Tessa stared at her. What? 2 saline bags. Medical tape. Then go into the supply room. Tessa still looked confused. Why? Mara's voice became firmer. Because I need you to trust me. Tessa moved. She grabbed the supplies. Mara looked down the hallway. 2 men had appeared near the far stairwell. They were not moving like frightened civilians. They were not looking around randomly. They were scanning. Searching. Mara understood immediately. Profissionals. Mercer saw them too. He stepped backward. What is happening? Mara did not answer. She looked at the security door. Then at the emergency cart. Then at the east corridor. Then at room 318. Her mind processed the entire area in seconds. The distance. The doors. The exits. The blind spots. The equipment. The people. Every possible movement. Mercer grabbed her arm. Mara, get into the break room. She looked down at his hand. Then at him. Something in her expression made him release her. Mara walked toward the security panel. She pressed the manual override. A mechanical click echoed through the corridor. The east wing locked. Tessa rushed through the other side carrying the saline bags. Mara pulled the door shut. Now the eastern corridor was isolated. Tessa stared at her. What are you doing? Keeping them away from Elliot. Tessa's face went pale. You know who he is? Mara looked toward room 318. I know enough. Inside room 318, Elliot Grant had already realized something was wrong. He stood near the window. He was a man in his late 50s with tired eyes and the posture of someone who had spent too much of his life looking over his shoulder. Mara entered. Stay inside. Elliot looked at her. Who are they? People who shouldn't be here. Tessa stood behind Mara. She was shaking. Mara noticed. You're doing fine. I don't think I am. You are. The confidence in Mara's voice was strange. She did not sound like a nurse trying to comfort someone. She sounded like someone giving an instruction. A minute later, the first intruder entered the corridor. Mara heard him before she saw him. A subtle shift. A footstep. A change in the building's silence. She moved behind the emergency cart. The man rounded the corner. He saw Mara. For a moment, neither moved. Then Mara threw one of the saline bags past him. The man turned instinctively. That was enough. Mara moved. Fast. Not wildly. Not angrily. Precisely. She stepped into his momentum, redirected his balance, and drove him toward the wall. The encounter lasted only seconds. When it ended, the man was on the floor. Mara secured his hands using medical tape. His weapon had fallen nearby. She picked it up, checked it, removed the magazine, then placed the weapon on the emergency cart. Tessa stared at her. She could barely speak. What did you just do? Mara looked at her. Stay with Elliot. Tessa swallowed. But you're a nurse. Mara gave her a calm look. Yes. Another sound came from the hallway. Mara turned. The second intruder was coming. But this one was different. He did not rush. He stepped into the corridor slowly. His eyes immediately went to his partner on the floor. Then to the missing weapon. Then to Mara. He studied her. Mara studied him. Neither spoke. The man took another step. Who are you? Mara remained silent. His eyes moved to her feet. Then her hands. Then her shoulders. He was trying to understand how she had taken down his partner. And Mara could tell that he was better trained than the first man. Much better. For the first time that afternoon, he was trying to rebuild the world he had controlled that morning. But the world had changed. Mara simply stood there. Then the front doors opened. 8 people entered. They were not police officers. They moved differently. Their credentials were visible. Their eyes immediately began checking entrances, exits, patients, hallways, and personnel. At the front of the group was a gray-haired man named Commander Daniel Reeves. He walked directly toward Mara. Mercer stepped forward. Dr. Adrian Mercer. I run this floor. Reeves walked past him. Mercer stopped speaking. Reeves reached Mara. He looked at the extinguisher dust on her uniform. Then at the restrained men. Then at her face. Something changed in his expression. Recognition. Vesper. The word echoed through the hallway. Mara closed her eyes for a moment. Then opened them. Tessa looked confused. Mercer looked even more confused. Reeves continued. We've been looking for you. Mara answered quietly. I thought you wouldn't find me. Reeves shook his head. We didn't. He glanced toward the armed men. They found you first. Mercer looked from Reeves to Mara. Who is Vesper? Nobody answered immediately. Then Reeves turned toward him. Mara Bennett spent years working as a classified tactical protection specialist. Mercer's expression changed. Reeves continued. Her assignment involved high-risk witnesses and sensitive operations. Her identity was protected even from most law enforcement personnel. The hallway became silent. Vesper wasn't a nickname, Reeves said. It was an operational designation. Mercer stared at Mara. Reeves explained that the designation had been given because of her unusual patience. She observed. She waited. She calculated. She did not move simply because other people expected movement. She moved when movement had a purpose. Mercer remembered the 12 minutes from that morning. He remembered calling her slow. Reeves looked at him. You thought she needed 12 minutes because she didn't know what she was doing. Mercer said nothing. She was assessing everything around her. Reeves paused. I once watched her remain in one position for 14 hours because she knew that moving too early would destroy the mission. Tessa looked at Mara. Suddenly, every little detail made sense. The careful medication checks. The constant awareness. The position near the doors. The calm response to sudden noises. The silence. It had never been weakness. It had been discipline. Reeves then explained the truth about Elliot Grant. He was not simply a private patient. He was a protected federal witness. The men who entered Eastridge had come to silence him before he could testify. The federal response team had been minutes away when the attack began. Without Mara's actions, Elliot might not have survived long enough for them to arrive. Reeves turned back toward Mercer. You called her a liability. Mercer lowered his eyes. You wanted her removed from the floor. Mercer had no answer. Reeves looked around at the staff. Today, the person you considered a liability was the reason your protected witness is still alive. Nobody laughed now. Nobody looked away. Everyone understood. Mara had not changed. Their understanding of her had changed. And sometimes that is the most powerful transformation of all. The formal process took almost an hour. Statements were taken. The 2 attackers were transferred into federal custody. Elliot was moved into a secure vehicle. The clinic slowly returned to normal. But for the staff on the 3rd floor, nothing felt normal anymore. Tessa found Mara near the window. She was looking down at the street. The last federal vehicle was disappearing into traffic. Tessa stood beside her. Is Vesper who you really are? Mara was quiet. Part of me. Tessa waited. Mara continued. I spent a long time thinking I had to choose. Choose between what? The person I was and the person I became. Tessa looked at her. Mara smiled faintly. Maybe I never had to choose. She looked down at her hands. The patience Mercer called slowness came from the same place as everything else. She looked toward the hallway. The observation he called hesitation. Then she looked back at Tessa. The precision he called excessive. She paused. They were never weaknesses. They were simply parts of the same person. Commander Reeves returned a few minutes later. He had an offer. A position in field operations. Training and leadership. He wanted Mara to help prepare personnel, who protected high-risk witnesses, people who could fight, people who could follow orders, but people who also needed to know when not to move. Reeves told her the unit needed someone who understood both medicine and tactical protection. That combination was rare. Mara looked through the window again. Behind her was the clinic. The place where she had spent years trying to become invisible. The place where she had allowed people to misunderstand her because being underestimated had felt safer than being recognized. She had built an ordinary life around extraordinary skills. But that afternoon had broken the wall between those two lives. Reeves waited. When do you need an answer? Mara turned toward him. When do I start? Reeves smiled. Tomorrow. Mara nodded. And for the first time, she did not apologize for being exactly who she was. Mara Bennett spent years making herself smaller. She allowed people to think she was too careful, too quiet, too slow. She allowed them to believe that because she did not rush, she did not know what she was doing. But she understood something they did not. Speed is not the same as ability. Noise is not the same as confidence. And silence is not the same as weakness. Sometimes the person standing quietly in the corner is not afraid. Sometimes they are simply watching, waiting, learning, preparing. And sometimes, when the moment finally arrives, the person everyone ignored becomes the only person capable of saving everyone else. So the next time you meet someone who seems quiet, careful, or different, remember Mara. You may not know what they have survived. You may not know what they have learned. And you certainly may not know what they are capable of. Because sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the person everyone ends up needing. What if the woman everyone at the clinic thought was too slow to handle pressure was actually the only person who understood what was happening? And what if the strange habits they laughed about were not signs of weakness at all, but skills she had spent years learning in places where one wrong decision could cost a life? If you enjoy stories where ordinary people hide extraordinary secrets, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves suspenseful stories. Mara Bennett stood in the middle of the eastern corridor, while the sound of approaching footsteps became louder. Behind her, Tessa Monroe was trying to keep Elliot Grant calm. In front of Mara, somewhere beyond the security door, the second armed man was moving closer. Mara could hear him. One step. Pause. Another step. Pause. He wasn't rushing. That told Mara everything she needed to know. He was experienced. He wasn't frightened by what had happened to his partner. He was studying the situation. Mara lowered her shoulders slightly and kept her hands relaxed. Tessa whispered, "What are you going to do?" Mara didn't look back. "Wait." Tessa stared at her. "Wait for what?" "The right moment." The footsteps stopped. For several seconds, nothing happened. The silence felt heavier than the gunshots had. Elliot stood near the wall, watching Mara with a mixture of fear and confusion. He had spent weeks surrounded by people whose job was to protect him. Security officers, investigators, lawyers, doctors. But none of them had looked like Mara. None of them had been this calm. If you're still watching, you already know there is more to Mara than anyone at Eastridge ever imagined. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves a story with a hidden secret. The second man finally appeared. He stepped around the corner slowly. His weapon remained lowered. His eyes moved across the corridor. He saw his partner on the floor. Then he saw Mara. Then the closed door behind her. He understood the situation quickly. "You're a nurse," he said. Mara didn't answer. He took another step. "I saw your badge." Still nothing. "You should move aside." Mara looked directly at him. "No." The man smiled faintly. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the expression of someone who believed he had already won. "You don't understand what you're involved in." Mara's eyes remained fixed on him. "I understand enough." The man raised his weapon slightly. Tessa's breathing stopped. Elliot closed his eyes. But Mara had already noticed something. His right foot was slightly forward. His shoulders were angled. His attention was focused on her upper body. He expected her to move backward. That was exactly what he wanted. Mara had no intention of doing what he expected. If you like this kind of suspense, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more stories, and share it so others can experience this moment too. Mercer frowned. What does that mean? It means you should let the people trained to handle this situation handle it. Mercer's face tightened. I don't appreciate being spoken to like. Reeves raised one hand. Mercer stopped. The room became silent again. If you enjoy stories where the truth completely changes how everyone sees a person, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves a good mystery. Reeves looked at the restrained attackers. Are they alive? Mara nodded. Both. Good. Reeves turned to one of his agents. Secure them and get medical support. The agent moved immediately. Two others began checking the hallway. Another approached Elliot Grant. Mr. Grant, we're going to move you to a secure location. Elliot looked at Mara. She nodded. Only then did he agree. Tessa watched the exchange. Elliot trusted Mara. The federal team trusted Mara. Reeves knew Mara by a name nobody else had heard. Suddenly, Tessa understood something. Mara had never been the person who needed protection. She had been the person providing it. As Elliot was escorted away, he stopped beside Mara. Thank you. Mara looked at him. You don't have to thank me. Ido. He paused. You saved my life. Mara's expression softened. I did what needed to be done. Elliot nodded. Then he walked away. Tessa watched him disappear through the elevator doors. She turned back toward Mara. You knew all along. Mara looked at her. I knew he was in danger. No. I mean you. Mara remained silent. Tessa took a small step closer. You knew how to fight them. Mara didn't answer. You knew where to stand. Still nothing. You knew how to read them. Mara finally looked at her. Those skills don't disappear. Tessa's eyes widened. What kind of life did you have before this? Mara looked down the empty hallway. A complicated one. Tessa waited. But Mara didn't explain. Not yet. If you want the full truth about Mara's past, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more stories, and share it with someone who loves hidden identities and unexpected twists. Reeves approached again. We need to talk. Mara nodded. Not here. Agreed. They walked toward an empty consultation room. Tessa watched them go. Before Mara entered, she stopped. She turned around. Tessa. Tessa looked up. Yes. Thank you for listening to me today. Tessa smiled nervously. You saved everyone. Mara shook her head. No. She glanced toward the hallway. You helped. Then she entered the room. The door closed. Inside, Reeves sat across from her. For the first time since entering the clinic, his expression changed. He looked concerned. You weren't supposed to get involved. Mara leaned against the table. They came for Grant. I know. They were early. We know. Then you should have arrived earlier. Reeves looked at her. We were 7 minutes away. Mara said nothing. 7 minutes, he repeated. That's how much time you had. Mara looked toward the closed door. 7 minutes is enough for a lot of things to go wrong. Reeves nodded. It is. He opened a folder. Inside were documents. Photographs. Names. Reports. Mara didn't touch them. I left that life, she said. I know. I don't want to go back. I know that too. Then why are you here? Reeves closed the folder. Because you never really left. Mara looked at him. Reeves continued. You changed your name. You changed your career. You moved cities. You stopped answering calls. You stopped carrying identification connected to the unit. But you never stopped thinking like Vesper. Mara's expression remained calm. You can't turn training off. Reeves nodded. Exactly. He leaned forward. We need someone like you. Mara looked away. No. Reeves waited. No. I don't want to be that person anymore. Then why did you stop those men? Mara didn't answer. Why did you protect Grant? Silence. Why did you calculate the corridor before anyone else even understood there was a threat? Mara looked back at him. Because people were in danger. Reeves smiled slightly. That's exactly why. If you believe true strength is often hidden behind a quiet face, Support the story by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who needs to hear that message. Outside the room, Mercer was still standing near the nursing station. He had not moved much. He was staring at the closed door. The other nurses were avoiding him. Tessa eventually walked past. Mercer stopped her. "What do you know about her?" Tessa looked at him. "Nothing." "You've worked with her." "So have you." Mercer looked uncomfortable. Tessa continued. "Maybe you should have paid attention." Mercer's jaw tightened. "Be careful." Tessa didn't step back. For months she had watched him criticize Mara. Now she knew he had been wrong. "You were wrong about her." Mercer said nothing. Tessa walked away. For the first time, Mercer had no authority over the situation. And he knew it. Inside the consultation room, Reeves placed a photograph on the table. Mara looked at it. A younger version of herself. Shorter hair. Different clothing. Different expression. But the eyes were the same. Tessa would never have recognized her. Mara did. When was this? 6 years ago. Mara looked away. "I thought that chapter was closed." It was. Reeves placed another photograph beside it. "This isn't." Mara looked at the second photograph. A man. A building. A vehicle. A series of dates. "What is this?" "The people who attacked Grant aren't working alone." Mara's eyes narrowed. "How many?" "We don't know." "Who is coordinating them?" "We're still trying to find out." Mara leaned back. "Then you don't need me." Reeves shook his head. "We need someone who understands how they think." Mara stared at him. "And you think that's me?" "I know it is." Mara looked at the photographs again. The silence lasted several seconds. Then she asked one question. "Why did they come through the clinic?" Reeves answered immediately. "Because they believed the building had weak security." Mara shook her head. "No." Reeves paused. "What?" "They chose the clinic because they knew the staff." She pointed toward the door. "They knew exactly where Grant was." Reeves looked at her. Mara continued. "That means someone gave them information." The room became quiet. Reeves slowly nodded. "That's what we believe." Mara looked toward the hallway. "So the attack wasn't just an attack?" "No. It was an inside operation." "Possibly." Mara stood. "Then you have a problem." Reeves looked up. "What problem?" Mara's eyes hardened. "You haven't found the person helping them." If you're hooked on the mystery, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And share it now because the danger may not have ended with the 2 men on the floor. Reeves slowly stood. "That's why I came." Mara looked at him. "I need to know everyone who had access to Grant's information." "We have the list." "Everyone." "Everyone." "Then start with the people who shouldn't have had access." Reeves nodded. Mara opened the door. Tessa was standing outside. She immediately looked away. Mara smiled slightly. "You were listening." Tessa looked embarrassed. "A little." Mara shook her head. "Then you heard enough." Tessa hesitated. "Are you leaving?" Mara looked down the hallway. The clinic had become strangely quiet. The same place where she had spent months being ignored now felt completely different. People were watching her. Not because she was slow. Not because she was strange. Because they were finally seeing her. "I don't know." Tessa looked worried. "I hope you don't." Mara smiled. "Why?" "Because you're the first person here who actually listens when something feels wrong." Mara looked at her for a moment. Then she nodded. "That might be the nicest thing anyone has said to me here." Tessa smiled. "Then maybe you should stay." Mara looked toward the consultation room. Reeves was waiting. The decision was not going to be simple. She had spent years trying to escape the person she used to be. But perhaps escaping had never been the answer. Perhaps accepting every part of herself was. She walked back toward Reeves. "Tell me everything." Reeves nodded. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." And somewhere outside the clinic, an unknown person was watching the building. Watching the federal vehicles. Watching the people leaving. And watching Mara Bennett. Because the attackers had failed. But whoever had sent them had not. And now they knew something even more dangerous. Vesper was alive. Reeves closed the consultation room door behind him. For several seconds, neither he nor no. Contractor? No. Then why was he inside the clinic? We don't know. Mara picked up the photograph. He wasn't inside. Reeves looked at her. What? He was watching the entrance. She pointed to the image. Look at his position. Reeves leaned closer. Mara continued. He's not waiting for someone. He's observing who comes in. Reeves stared at the photograph. You noticed that from this? I noticed his feet. Reeves smiled faintly. Some things never change. Mara ignored the comment. How long has he been there? 3 days. Every day. According to security footage, yes. Mara placed the photograph down. Then the attack wasn't planned yesterday. Reeves nodded. No. It was planned before Grant arrived. We think so. Mara looked at the other photographs. Then Grant wasn't the original target. Reeves became serious. That's what concerns us. Mara turned toward him. Who was? Reeves did not answer immediately. Instead, he opened another folder. Inside was a list of names. Mara read it. Then she stopped. One name caught her attention. Tessa Monroe. Mara looked up. Why is her name here? Reeves watched her carefully. Because she had access to the East Wing supply records. Mara frowned. That doesn't mean anything. It might. Tessa has been here 3 months. Exactly. Mara looked back at the list. She doesn't know anything about Grant. Are you sure? Mara was silent. Reeves continued. We don't know who has been compromised. Mara closed the folder. Tessa isn't involved. You sound certain. I am. Why? Because she doesn't know how to lie. Reeves raised an eyebrow. That's your evidence? No. Mara looked toward the door. That's my observation. If you're enjoying the mystery, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves stories where every small detail matters. Outside the room, Tessa was waiting. She looked nervous when Mara stepped out. Is something wrong? Mara studied her face. No. Tessa relaxed. But Mara noticed something else. Tessa was holding her phone tightly. Everything okay? Tessa nodded. Yes. Mara looked at the phone. Then at Tessa. You've been getting messages. Tessa's expression changed. How did you know? You keep checking the screen. Tessa hesitated. I've been getting strange texts. From who? I don't know. Show me. Tessa unlocked the phone. The messages were short. Unknown number. No name. No photograph. The first message said, you should not have helped her. The second said, stay away from Mara Bennett. The third had arrived only 2 minutes earlier. You have no idea who she is. Mara read them silently. Her expression became colder. Tessa looked frightened. What does that mean? Mara handed the phone back. It means someone is watching you. Tessa swallowed. Because of you? Mara nodded. Probably. Tessa stared at her. Then what am I supposed to do? Mara looked toward the security team in the hallway. For now, stay close to me. Tessa nodded. Then she asked the question Mara had been avoiding. Who is Vesper? Mara looked at her. For a moment she seemed almost tired. Then she said quietly, someone I used to be. Tessa waited. That's not an answer. I know. Then give me the real one. Mara looked toward the window. Vesper was the name people used when I was sent somewhere normal people weren't supposed to go. Tessa's face tightened. Like where? Places where people were being hunted. Tessa stared at her. You protected them? Sometimes. And the other times? Mara's eyes lowered. I found the people doing the hunting. Tessa didn't ask another question. She didn't need to. If this story is keeping you hooked, show your support with a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who enjoys suspense and hidden identities. Reeves stepped into the hallway. Mara. She turned. We have a problem. Mara immediately noticed the change in his expression. What happened? He handed her a tablet. The screen showed security footage. A man entering the building. Then another angle. The same man near the elevator. Another camera. Reeves followed. Behind them, The smoke continued spreading through the hallway. Somewhere above, a door slammed. Mara stopped. She looked up. He's waiting, Reeves whispered. For us? Mara nodded. Yes. She looked at him. And this time he wants me. Mara climbed the stairs slowly. Not because she was afraid. Because she was listening. Every sound inside the stairwell mattered. The hum of the emergency lights. The faint movement of air. The distant voices below. And somewhere above them, a door had just closed. Reeves followed closely behind. How certain are you? He whispered. Mara kept her eyes on the stairs. 80%. That's not very high. It is when someone wants you to think they're running away. Reeves nodded. They continued upward. When they reached the next landing, Mara stopped. There was a small security camera mounted above the door. Its indicator light was off. Mara looked at it. That's another blind spot. Reeves checked his radio. No signal. Of course. Mara stepped toward the door. She placed her hand against it. Cold metal. No vibración. No movement. She looked at Reeves. Stay behind me. He almost smiled. I was going to say that to you. Mara opened the door. Nothing happened. The rooftop access corridor was empty. But Mara immediately noticed something on the floor. A thin trail of water. Someone had walked through the area recently. The drops led toward the rooftop door. Reeves crouched. Then? Mara shook her head. The roof is dry. She followed the trail. Then stopped. The door was slightly open. Mara raised one hand. Reeves stopped behind her. She listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. No movement. She pushed the door open. Wind rushed past them. The rooftop was empty. For several seconds, they stood there. Then Mara saw something. A dark shape near the far wall. A bag. She walked toward it. Reeves followed. Mara stopped several feet away. Don't touch it. Reeves looked at the bag. Why? Because it was left for us. Mara pointed toward the roof entrance. The person who left it wanted us to find it. Reeves nodded. He called for a specialist team. While they waited, Mara looked across the rooftop. The surrounding buildings were visible. Traffic moved far below. People walked through the streets without knowing what had happened inside the clinic. Mara studied the rooftops around them. Then she saw movement. A figure. 3 buildings away. Someone standing near a rooftop wall. Mara's eyes narrowed. Reeves. He turned. Where? She pointed. The figure disappeared. Reeves immediately raised his binoculars. Nothing. Could have been a shadow. Mara shook her head. No. She knew what she had seen. And more importantly, she knew what the person wanted her to think. They wanted her to chase. She wasn't going to. If you're enjoying the mystery, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who loves suspenseful twists. The specialist team arrived minutes later. They approached the bag carefully. Inside they found a phone, a photograph, and a folded piece of paper. Reeves opened the paper. There were only 6 words. You should have stayed hidden, Vesper. Mara stared at the message. Her face became completely still. Reeves looked at her. You recognize the handwriting? No. The message? Yes. From where? Mara looked toward the city. From someone who knows me. Reeves lowered the paper. How many people know about Vesper? Very few. How few? Mara thought for a moment. Less than 10. Reeves became serious. And how many of them would want you dead? Mara answered quietly. 3. Reeves looked at her. Names. Mara gave him 3 names. The first had disappeared years ago. The second was believed to be in prison. The third had been presumed dead. Reeves stared at her. You're telling me one of these people is alive? Mara looked at the note. I'm telling you someone wants me to believe they are. If you're hooked on the story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who loves hidden enemies and unexpected revelations. Downstairs, Tessa was sitting in a waiting area. She had been told to stay with the other nurses. But her mind was racing. She kept thinking about Mara. About the way she had moved. About the way Reeves had said her secret name. About the messages on her phone. Then her phone vibrated again. Tessa looked at the screen. Unknown number. One new message. You should have listened when we warned you. Her hands began shaking. Another message appeared. Leave the clinic now. Tessa stood. She looked around. Everyone else was busy. She walked toward the exit. Then stopped. Mara had told her to stay close. She remembered those words. She turned around. A man was standing near the elevator. He was wearing hospital clothing. But Tessa had never seen him before. He looked directly at her. Then he smiled. Tessa immediately knew something was wrong. She turned away. The man began walking toward her. If you're enjoying the story, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it because Tessa may have just become the next target. Tessa walked faster. She entered the nurse's station. The man followed. She picked up a phone. Security? No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. The man appeared in the doorway. Miss Monroe? Tessa looked at him. Yes. I'm looking for room 318. Tessa's heart started beating faster. That room is restricted. I was told I could enter. By who? The man smiled. Dr. Mercer. Tessa didn't believe him. Mercer had been removed from the active situation. He shouldn't have been sending anyone anywhere. Tessa stepped backward. I can't let you in. The man's smile disappeared. Then I'll find another way. He turned. Tessa watched him walk away. She immediately reached for her phone. She called Mara. No answer. She called again. Nothing. Then she remembered something Mara had told her earlier. If something feels wrong, don't investigate it alone. Tessa walked toward the consultation room. Reeves had left it unlocked. Inside she found the list. Names. Security access. Staff records. And one name she recognized. Victor Hale. Tessa stared at it. She remembered seeing him. Not in the clinic. Somewhere else. She couldn't remember where. Then it came back. 3 weeks earlier. She had been at a small coffee shop near the hospital. Victor had been sitting across the street, watching the clinic. Tessa's heart dropped. He had been watching Mara long before the attack. She picked up the file. And then she noticed something else. Her own name was on the same page. If you want to know why Tessa's name appeared in the investigation, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves a mystery where every clue matters. Tessa turned the page. There was a note beside her name. Possible secondary contact. She stared at the words. What does that mean? A voice answered from behind her. It means someone thinks you're useful. Tessa froze. She slowly turned. Dr. Adrian Mercer stood in the doorway. His face looked different. The arrogance was gone. His expression was serious. What are you doing here? Tessa asked. Mercer closed the door. I came back for my files. You shouldn't be here. I know. Tessa held the folder tightly. Why is my name in this? Mercer looked at it. Then at her. I don't know. You're lying. Mercer frowned. I have made a lot of mistakes today, Tessa. You have made mistakes for months. He looked down. I know. Tessa had never heard him speak like that. He sounded tired. Almost ashamed. Then tell me what you know. Mercer hesitated. I know someone inside this clinic has been giving information to outsiders. Tessa's face went pale. Who? I don't know. Then why did you come here? Mercer looked toward the hallway. Because I think they're still here. Tessa whispered. Who? Mercer looked directly at her. Victor Hale. If this revelation surprised you, show your support by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who loves stories full of twists. Tessa's phone vibrated. Another message. She looked at the screen. This time there were only 4 words. I see you. Tessa looked toward the window. Nothing. Then she heard a noise. A soft click. Mercer's expression changed. Get down. They dropped behind the desk. The window shattered. Glass exploded across the room. Tessa screamed. Mercer pulled her behind the wall. For a moment, everything was silent. Then another impact hit the window frame. Mercer looked at Tessa. Stay here. Where are you going? To find security. Tessa grabbed his sleeve. No. She couldn't stop staring. Her mind kept replaying what she had just seen. The woman who had apologized to Dr. Harlan that morning had just protected an important witness from two armed attackers. The woman everyone considered too cautious had reacted faster than trained security personnel. The woman everyone thought was afraid had walked directly toward danger. Lily finally found her voice. Mara. Mara turned. Yes. How did you do that? Mara looked at the two men on the floor. Then she looked at Lily. I had good training. Lily almost laughed because the answer was so simple. Good training. Mara nodded. Yes. But you're a nurse. I am. Then what kind of training teaches a nurse to do that? Mara didn't answer. She turned toward Daniel. Are you hurt? Daniel shook his head. No. Good. Mara looked toward Lily. Check him anyway. Lily immediately moved toward Daniel. She checked his pulse, his breathing, his pupils, his arms. Everything appeared normal. But emotionally, Daniel was far from normal. He looked at Mara with an expression that suggested he was trying to understand something much larger than the attack itself. You knew they were coming, he said. Mara looked at him. I suspected. How? I heard them. Daniel shook his head. No. He looked toward the corridor. You knew before anyone else. Mara didn't respond. Daniel had spent years around people whose job was to protect him. He knew what trained professionals looked like. He knew the difference between ordinary courage and professional discipline. Mara had displayed the second. He lowered his voice. Who are you? Mara looked away. For years, that question had been something she avoided. Now it was standing directly in front of her. Before she could answer, a loud sound came from downstairs. Everyone froze. Lily looked toward the stairs. Are there more of them? Mara raised one hand. Wait. She listened. Her eyes closed slightly. The hospital's ventilation system hummed above them. A monitor beeped from a nearby room. Someone was crying on the other side of the security door. Then Mara heard the sound again. A vehicle stopping outside. Then another. Mara relaxed. They're here. Lily looked confused. Who? Mara didn't answer. She already knew. Federal agents. The response team had finally arrived. And with them came the person Mara had spent years trying to avoid. Her former commander. The one man who knew exactly who she had been. If you're still with us, the biggest reveal is getting closer. Tap like if you're enjoying the story, subscribe so you don't miss the next part, and share this video with someone who loves hidden identity stories. Sometimes the person standing quietly beside you has a past you could never imagine. The main entrance opened. 8 people entered the hospital. They didn't rush. They didn't shout. They didn't create unnecessary panic. They moved with quiet coordination. Every person seemed to know exactly where to stand. Patients and staff watched from behind doors. Dr. Harlan stepped into the lobby. He straightened his jacket. For a moment he looked relieved. Professional security had arrived. The situation was finally under control. Then he noticed the credentials. Federal. His expression changed. He walked toward the team leader. I'm Dr. Harlan. I'm responsible for this facility. The team leader barely looked at him. Where is the protected witness? Harlan pointed toward the eastern wing. He's secured. Who secured him? Harlan hesitated. Then he pointed. Mara. The commander looked up. For the first time his expression changed. He walked toward the eastern wing. Harlan followed. I've already suspended her, Harlan said. The commander stopped. You did what? I suspended Mara Ellison. The commander stared at him. For what reason? Harlan's confidence returned. She violated hospital protocol. The commander looked at him for several seconds. Then he asked quietly, Are you aware of who she is? Harlan frowned. She's a nurse. The commander said nothing. Harlan continued. A very slow nurse. Lily heard those words. Her face tightened. The commander looked toward her. Did he just call her slow? Lily nodded. The commander sighed. Then he walked forward. The security door opened. He stepped into the eastern wing. Mara was standing near Daniel. White dust covered her clothes. The moment she saw the commander, She became still. Not frightened. Not surprised. Still. The commander stopped several feet away. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said one word. Raven. Lily looked at Mara. Mara's face changed. It was subtle. But Lily saw it. The calm nurse disappeared for a second. Something older appeared in her eyes. Something harder. Something that had been buried for years. Mara closed her eyes. Then opened them again. I thought you weren't looking for me anymore. The commander shook his head. We never stopped. Mara looked down. You should have. No. The commander stepped closer. We needed you. Mara gave a small, tired smile. You don't need me anymore. The commander looked at the two attackers. Looks like we still do. Mara didn't answer. Behind the commander, Dr. Harlan was standing frozen. He looked from the commander to Mara, then back again. What does Raven mean? The commander turned toward him. Harlan repeated the question. Who is Raven? The commander didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Mara. She gave a slight nod. That was enough. The commander turned back toward Harlan. Raven was her operational designation. Harlan stared. Operational? Yes. For what? The commander looked at him. Classified protection operations. Harlan's face slowly lost its color. Mara remained silent. The commander continued. Before she became a nurse, she worked with a federal protective unit. Harlan looked toward Mara. She was a security officer? The commander shook his head. More than that. Harlan swallowed. How much more? The commander looked at the two men on the floor. Enough to survive situations most people never even hear about. The hallway became silent. Lily suddenly remembered every strange thing she had noticed. Mara always knew where the exits were. She never sat with her back toward a door. She reacted to sounds before everyone else. She checked medication labels twice. She examined rooms before entering them. She watched people without staring. She moved carefully. All of it suddenly made sense. The commander looked at Mara. You've been hiding for a long time. Mara answered quietly. That was the point. Why? Because I wanted a normal life. The commander nodded. I understand. No, you don't. Mara's voice became slightly stronger. I wanted to wake up in the morning and worry about patients instead of threats. The commander didn't interrupt. I wanted to work somewhere nobody knew my name. She looked toward the hallway. I wanted to be ordinary. The commander looked at her for a moment. You were never ordinary. Mara smiled sadly. That's exactly why I left. Dr. Harlan finally spoke. But if she was trained, why did she work so slowly? The commander turned toward him. She wasn't slow. Harlan frowned. I watched her. No. The commander's voice remained calm. You watched her movements. Harlan didn't understand. You never watched her decisions. That sentence silenced him. The commander continued. People like Mara don't rush unless rushing improves the outcome. He pointed toward the hallway. Look at what she did today. Harlan looked around. She secured the witness. Yes. She stopped two armed men. Yes. She protected another nurse. Yes. And she did all of that without waiting for security. The commander nodded. Exactly. Harlan stared at Mara. The woman he had humiliated that morning. The woman he had called incapable. The woman he had threatened to fire. She had just done the job his security team had failed to do. The commander stepped closer. You called her a liability. Harlan said nothing. You said she wasn't capable of working under pressure. Still nothing. You said she took 10 minutes to do something another nurse could do in 2. Harlan lowered his eyes. The commander continued. You never understood what you were looking at. Mara looked away. She didn't want praise. She didn't need revenge. She only wanted the crisis to end. But the commander wasn't finished. He explained that Mara's designation had been earned because of her unusual ability to observe and assess situations before acting. She had been trained to protect high-risk witnesses. She had been trained to recognize threats. She had been trained to remain calm. She had been trained to make decisions under extreme pressure. But her most important skill was patience. She didn't move. Children were walking beside their parents. Nobody outside knew what had happened inside this hospital. Nobody knew how close Daniel had come to death. Nobody knew how one quiet nurse had changed the outcome. And Mara preferred it that way. She had never wanted attention. She had never wanted recognition. She had simply wanted people to survive. That was always enough for her. But now the secret was out. And she knew there was no way to put it back. The commander approached her again. "We need to talk." Mara sighed. "I know. Not here." She nodded. They walked toward a quiet conference room. Lily watched them leave. She didn't know what would happen next. But she knew one thing. The woman she had met that morning was not the woman she thought she knew. And perhaps that was the most dangerous thing about Mara. Nobody had seen her coming. Nobody had understood her. And that had been exactly how she wanted it. The conference room door closed. Mara sat across from her former commander. For the first time that day, she looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. The commander placed a folder on the table. Mara didn't touch it. "I don't want another assignment." The commander nodded. "I know. I left for a reason." "I know. Then why are you here?" The commander looked at her. "Because today's attack wasn't random." Mara's expression changed. "What do you mean?" "The people who came for Daniel knew where he was." Mara sat forward. "They had access to the building." "Yes." "How?" "We don't know yet." Mara looked toward the folder. "Someone gave them information." The commander nodded. "That's what we believe." Mara opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Names. Dates. Locations. She looked through the pages. Then she stopped. One name caught her attention. Her eyes narrowed. "Where did you get this?" The commander watched her carefully. "From the investigation." Mara pointed at the document. "This person knew Daniel's location." "Yes." "And they knew his transfer schedule." "Yes." Mara turned another page. "They knew which floor." "Yes." She looked up. Then the attack wasn't just an attempt. The commander waited. Mara continued. "It was an extraction." The commander nodded. "Exactly." Mara closed the folder. Her mind was already working. She began reviewing the timeline. The attack. The timing. The access. The security failure. The way the attackers moved. Something didn't fit. Mara looked at the commander. How long before Daniel was supposed to be moved? Tomorrow morning. Mara's expression became serious. Then they weren't trying to kill him today. The commander leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Mara answered. "They were testing the building." The commander went silent. Mara continued. "They wanted to know how fast security responded." She pointed at the floor plan. "They wanted to know which doors locked." Then she pointed at another section. "They wanted to know how long it would take federal response to arrive." The commander stared at her. Mara continued. "And they wanted to know whether anyone unexpected would interfere." The commander finally understood. "They were testing us." Mara nodded. "Yes." The room became quiet. The commander leaned back. "Then today was only the beginning." Mara looked at the folder. "I think so." The commander asked the question she had been hoping he wouldn't ask. "Will you help us?" Mara stared at him. For years, she had wanted to escape that world. She had built an ordinary life. She had become a nurse. She had kept her head down. She had allowed people to underestimate her. But now she realized something. Maybe she hadn't escaped her old life. Maybe she had simply been waiting for the right moment to decide what came next. She looked at the folder again. Then at the commander. "I'll help." The commander nodded. "But not as an operative." He raised an eyebrow. "Then as what?" Mara answered. "As a nurse." He smiled. "You're serious?" "Very." Mara stood. "Because if someone is planning to attack a protected witness inside a medical facility, they need to understand something." The commander waited. Mara looked directly at him. "They won't be fighting the person they expect." She walked toward the door. The commander smiled. For the first time in years, Raven was back. But this time, she would not disappear. And somewhere outside the hospital, Someone was already preparing for the next move. What if the attack everyone thought was finished had actually been nothing more than a test? What if the two armed men on the hospital floor were never the real danger? And the person behind everything had already found a way inside. Before we continue, take a second to support the channel. If you're enjoying this story, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves suspense, mystery, and unexpected twists. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to the channel. Mara stood inside the conference room with the folder still open in front of her. She had spent years trying to forget this world. Now the world had found her again. The photographs on the table showed the two men who had attacked the hospital. Both were experienced. Both had been carefully selected. Neither had acted like a desperate criminal. They had moved with discipline. They had studied the building. They had avoided unnecessary confrontation. They had entered through separate points. They had tested the hospital's security. And that was what bothered Mara most. If their only objective had been to kill Daniel Mercer, they would have moved directly toward his room. Instead, they had spent valuable time observing the building. One attacker had entered through the main floor. The other had used the upper access route. They had created confusion. They had forced security personnel to reveal their positions. They had watched how quickly doors locked. They had measured the response time. And then they had disappeared into the building as if they already knew where they were going. Mara looked at the commander. They weren't here to finish the job. The commander nodded. We came to the same conclusion. Mara closed the folder. Then someone wanted information. Yes. About Daniel? Partly. Mara looked at him. Partly. The commander hesitated. There is another concern. Mara waited. The hospital. Her eyes narrowed. What about it? We believe someone may have been gathering information from inside. Mara slowly turned toward the glass wall. The hospital suddenly looked different. The hallways, the security doors, the medical stations, the staff, the patients, everything she had considered ordinary, suddenly looked like a potential piece of a much larger puzzle. An employee? We don't know. A doctor? We don't know. A nurse? Possibly. Mara looked back at him. How long? The commander answered quietly. At least several weeks. Mara felt something cold settle in her chest. Several weeks. That meant the person had been watching, learning, collecting information, and possibly waiting. She looked at the hospital floor plan. Then the attack today wasn't spontaneous. No. It was scheduled. Yes. Mara pointed toward the eastern wing. They knew exactly where Daniel would be. The commander nodded. They knew. Mara thought about that morning. Dr. Harlan humiliating her. Lily asking if she was okay. The routine. The medication station. The patients. Everything had seemed normal. But perhaps the attack had already been in motion while everyone was living their ordinary lives. Mara's eyes moved toward the hallway. What time did the attackers enter? 2:17. When did security first notice them? 2:18. When did the federal alert activate? 2:19. And when did you arrive? 2:26. Mara became still. 7 minutes. The commander nodded. 7. She looked at him. That's too precise. What do you mean? They knew your response time. The commander's expression changed. Mara continued. They didn't simply know Daniel's location. They knew how long it would take you to reach him. The commander stared at the timeline. Mara pointed at the attackers' movement. They weren't afraid of the response team. Why? Because they expected you. She looked directly at him. They wanted to see what happened before you arrived. The commander was silent. Mara walked to the window. Outside, police vehicles were still parked along the street. Someone wanted to measure us. The commander nodded slowly. That's what it looks like. Mara turned. Then we have a big under the medication station. Mara looked toward the door. Who has access? Lily began listing names. Nurses. Doctors. Yes. Maintenance. Sometimes. Security. Of course. Mara nodded. Then we don't know who planted it. Lily looked frightened. What do we do? Mara answered immediately. Nothing. Lily blinked. Nothing. Not yet. Mara looked at the commander. We let them think we haven't found it. The commander smiled slightly. You're setting a trap. Mara shook her head. No. She looked at the device. I'm giving them a reason to reveal themselves. That was the difference between Mara and everyone else. She didn't chase information. She waited for information to come to her. And somewhere inside the hospital, someone was listening. Someone who believed they were still invisible. If this twist has you hooked, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who enjoys stories where the real mystery begins after everyone thinks the danger is over. Mara walked out of the conference room. She returned to the medication station. Everything looked normal. The same counters. The same computers. The same shelves. The same charts. But Mara saw it differently now. She looked at every person. Not suspiciously. Carefully. A nurse walked past. A doctor entered a room. A technician pushed a cart. A security officer checked the corridor. Nobody appeared nervous. Nobody looked out of place. But Mara knew something. The person they were looking for didn't have to behave strangely. A trained infiltrator could behave exactly like everyone else. That was what made them dangerous. Mara picked up a medication tray. She started working. Lily watched her. You're going back to work? Mara nodded. Yes. After everything? Especially after everything. Lily frowned. I don't understand. Mara looked at her. If someone is watching us, we need to behave normally. Lily lowered her voice. What if they know? Then we give them nothing useful. Mara continued preparing medications. She checked the label. Then checked it again. Lily smiled. You really do that every time? Mara smiled. Every time. Lily suddenly understood something. Mara's habits had never been random. They were discipline. Every action had a reason. Every routine was intentional. Even the things people laughed at. A few minutes later, Dr. Harlan appeared. He looked uncomfortable. Mara. She looked up. Doctor. He stood there awkwardly. I owe you an apology. Mara didn't answer. Harlan continued. I was wrong. Mara looked at him. About what? Harlan swallowed. About you. She waited. I thought you were incapable. Mara nodded. I know. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. No. Harlan looked surprised. Mara continued. You shouldn't have. He lowered his eyes. I'm sorry. Mara accepted the apology with a small nod. Thank you. Harlan started to leave. Mara stopped him. Doctor. He turned. Yes. Where were you at 2:15? Harlan froze. For what? The attack. He hesitated. I was in my office. Alone. Harlan looked at her. Yes. Mara studied his face. Then nodded. Okay. Harlan walked away. Lily approached. You think he did it? Mara shook her head. No. Then why ask? Because I needed to see how he answered. Lily looked confused. What did you learn? Mara watched Harlan disappear around the corner. That he was nervous. Lily whispered. Because he's guilty? Maybe. Mara paused. Or because he knows something. That was worse. Because knowledge could be just as dangerous as involvement. Mara continued working. She didn't confront him. She didn't accuse him. She simply watched. Over the next hour, the hospital slowly returned to normal. Patients were informed that the situation had been contained. The staff were told the attackers had been arrested. The official explanation was simple. An attempted attack had been stopped. But Mara knew better. The real story was still unfolding. At 5:40 p.m., Mara noticed something. A maintenance worker entered the eastern corridor. He pushed a small equipment cart. Mara watched him. He stopped near the medication station. Then he bent down. Mara's eyes narrowed. The man reached underneath the counter. Mara walked toward him. What are you doing? The man froze. Maintenance. I know. He slowly stood. I was checking the wiring. Mara looked at the cart. Which wiring? The security line. Mara looked at him. Why? He hesitated. Routine inspection. Mara nodded. Who authorized it? The man couldn't answer immediately. That was enough. Mara stepped closer. The man suddenly grabbed the cart. Mara moved. He tried to push past her. She blocked him. He reached inside his jacket. Mara immediately recognized the movement. She grabbed his wrist. The man tried to pull away. She twisted his arm. Something small fell from his hand. A second electronic device. It hit the floor. Lily gasped. Mara looked at the device. Then at the maintenance worker. Who sent you? He said nothing. Mara didn't hurt him. She simply held his wrist securely. The commander arrived moments later. The worker was taken into custody. The hospital fell silent again. But this time the silence felt different. Everyone understood. The threat had not ended. It had been inside the hospital all along. The commander examined the second device. This one is a transmitter. Mara nodded. I thought so. Why didn't you tell us? Because I wasn't sure. The commander looked at her. You were testing him. Mara nodded. I wanted to see who would react. The commander looked toward the security cameras. Someone may have known we found the first device. Mara shook her head. Maybe. What else? Mara looked at the hallway. The first device wasn't the important one. The commander frowned. Why? Because whoever planted it wanted us to find it. He stared at her. Why would they do that? To see what we'd do. The commander slowly understood. The first device was bait. Exactly. Mara looked at the second device. This one was the real surveillance. The commander became serious. Then the person behind this is smarter than we thought. Mara nodded. And closer. She looked around the hospital. Much closer. That night, Daniel was moved to a secure location. The official transfer was supposed to happen the next morning. But after what they had discovered, the plan changed. The commander ordered an immediate relocation. Daniel was escorted through a private exit. Mara stayed behind. She wanted to understand how deep the breach went. Lily refused to leave. You shouldn't stay here alone. Mara smiled. I'm not alone. Lily looked around. Who is with you? Mara pointed toward the security cameras. Everyone who is watching. Lily didn't find that funny. Mara did. At 11:30 p.m., the hospital became quiet. Most patients were asleep. Only essential staff remained. Mara sat at the nursing station. She looked ordinary again. A tired nurse at the end of a long shift. But she wasn't tired. She was waiting. The hallway lights were dim. The monitors beeped. A clock on the wall moved slowly. 11:41. 11:42. 11:43. Then Mara heard footsteps. She didn't look up. The footsteps stopped. Mara continued reading a chart. A shadow appeared on the wall. She waited. The shadow moved. Mara looked up. Nobody was there. She stood. Her eyes moved toward the corridor. Then she noticed something. A door was open. Room 426. It should have been locked. Mara walked toward it. She didn't enter immediately. She stood outside. Listened. Nothing. She pushed the door open. The room was empty. But something had been left behind. A small envelope. Mara picked it up. There was no name. No address. Only one word written across the front. Raven. Mara froze. For the first time that day, genuine emotion appeared on her face. Someone knew. Someone had deliberately left that message. She opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Mara, standing outside Westbridge Medical Center, taken 3 days earlier. On the back was a message. You were never forgotten. Mara's breathing slowed. The commander had been wrong. This wasn't simply about Daniel. This wasn't even about the hospital. Someone had been watching Mara. For how long? She didn't answer. The voice laughed quietly. You always were difficult to find. Mara looked toward the cameras. Who are you? Silence. Then the voice returned. Someone who remembers Raven. The line went dead. Mara stood alone in the corridor. She knew one thing now. Her old life had not returned by accident. Someone had brought it back. And they had done it deliberately. Mara looked at the photograph in her hand. Then she whispered to herself. You made one mistake. She folded the photograph. The voice had assumed she was still hiding. But Mara wasn't hiding anymore. She was ready. And whoever had been watching her was about to discover that finding Raven had been much easier than controlling her. The hallway lights flickered again. Mara turned toward the dark corridor. She heard a door close somewhere in the distance. Then another. Someone was moving through the building. Mara took one slow breath. She didn't run. She didn't panic. She simply started walking. Because the woman who had spent years pretending to be ordinary had finally accepted the truth. She was not running from her past anymore. She was walking toward it. And this time, she intended to find out who was behind everything. The question was no longer whether someone was watching Mara. The question was how close that person already was. And the answer was about to change everything. What if the person hunting you knew your secret long before you realized you were being watched? And what if the one place where you thought you had finally found peace had actually been part of a plan that began years ago? Before we continue, make sure you support the channel by hitting like, subscribing, and sharing this story with someone who enjoys suspenseful stories filled with hidden identities, unexpected danger, and powerful twists. Mara stood alone in the dark hospital corridor. The emergency lights above her flickered. What if the person who had been watching Mara for years was already inside the hospital, waiting for the exact moment she would reveal herself? And what if the message she had just received was not a warning at all, but an invitation? Before we continue, take a moment to support the channel. If you're enjoying this story, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves mysterious stories where every answer leads to an even bigger question. Mara stood in the dark corridor with the photograph still in her hand. The emergency lights painted the walls in a dim red glow. The hospital that had once felt ordinary now felt completely different. Every door seemed suspicious. Every camera seemed like another pair of eyes. Every sound seemed to carry a message. The voice from the intercom had known her old designation. Raven. That name had not been spoken casually. It belonged to a part of Mara's life that had supposedly disappeared years ago. Almost nobody outside her former unit should have known it. Mara looked at the photograph again. It showed her standing outside the hospital 3 days earlier. That meant whoever had taken it had been watching her before the attack. The person had known where she worked. They knew what she looked like. They knew she was there. And somehow, they knew exactly how to make her reveal the identity she had spent years hiding. Mara slowly folded the photograph and placed it inside her pocket. Then she looked down the corridor. All right, she whispered. If you want me, come and find me. She began walking. Her footsteps were quiet against the polished floor. She didn't move quickly. She didn't need to. The hospital had a particular rhythm at night. Machines beeped at regular intervals. Air moved through the ventilation system. A distant elevator occasionally made a mechanical sound. Mara had spent enough time in the building to recognize what belonged and what didn't. Then she heard something unfamiliar. A soft metallic click. She stopped. The sound came from the stairwell. Mara turned toward the door. She didn't open it immediately. Instead, she watched the small glass window. Nothing moved. She waited. 5 seconds. 10. Then the handle slowly moved. Mara stepped to the side. The door opened. A man entered. He was wearing a dark maintenance uniform. He looked around. Then he saw Mara. For half a second, his face showed surprise. Mara noticed. That was enough. He had not expected her to be there. The man reached toward his jacket. Mara moved first. She grabbed his wrist and pushed him against the wall. Who sent you? The man struggled. Let me go. I don't know what you're talking about. Mara tightened her grip slightly. Then why were you reaching for your jacket? The man went silent. Mara searched him quickly. She found a phone, a small access card, and a folded piece of paper. She opened the paper. It contained a series of numbers. Mara recognized them immediately. They were hospital room numbers. She looked at the man. Why do you have these? He didn't answer. Mara looked at the access card. It belonged to an employee named Owen Price. She had seen him before. Not often, but enough. He worked overnight maintenance. He had access to nearly every restricted hallway. Mara remembered seeing him near the eastern wing earlier that afternoon. At the time, she hadn't thought much about it. Now she did. Where is Owen? The man looked confused. I am Owen. Mara stared at him. No. She held up the access card. This belongs to Owen Price. The man's face changed. Mara immediately understood. Someone had stolen Owen's identity. The man wasn't maintenance staff. He was using someone else's credentials. That meant the security breach was larger than they had thought. Mara took the phone. It was locked. She looked at the screen. One notification appeared. A message. Is Raven awake? Mara stared at it. The message had been received only seconds earlier. Someone was still communicating with this man. And they were watching. Mara looked toward the nearest security camera. She realized something. The person behind everything didn't need to be inside the hospital. They could be watching remotely. Mara grabbed the radio from the man's belt. Security, this is Mara. Lock down the north stairwell. Static answered. Then a voice. Understood. Mara relaxed slightly, but only for a moment. A second voice came through the radio. Why? Mara froze. The first voice had been security. The second voice sounded different. Calm. Almost amused. Mara looked at the fake maintenance worker. He smiled. You really should have stayed hidden. Mara's eyes narrowed. Who are you? The man laughed. I've never been the one you should be asking that question. Then the lights came back on. The emergency system ended. The hospital returned to normal lighting. Mara looked around. Everything appeared unchanged. But something had. The man was gone. Mara looked down. The fake employee had slipped away during the few seconds of darkness. She immediately moved toward the stairwell. The door was open. She looked inside. Nothing. Then she noticed something on the floor. A small black device. Mara picked it up. It was another transmitter. She stared at it. The attacker had left it deliberately. Again. It was bait. Someone wanted her to find it. Someone wanted her to know they could move through the hospital whenever they wanted. That wasn't just surveillance. It was psychological warfare. They wanted Mara afraid. But fear was not what she felt. She felt focused. Because whoever was behind this had just made a mistake. They had revealed that they needed her attention. And that meant Mara had something they wanted. The question was what? If you're enjoying this mystery, don't leave yet. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this story. Every share helps more people discover these suspenseful stories, and we're getting closer to the biggest reveal. Mara returned to the conference room. The commander was waiting. He looked at her. What happened? Someone got into the hospital. The commander's expression hardened. Who? Someone using stolen credentials. Where are they? Gone. The commander looked frustrated. Mara placed the transmitter on the table. They wanted me to find this. He studied it. You think they know we're here? I know they know. The commander looked at the device. How? Because they called me Raven. The commander became silent. Mara continued. They know my identity. We knew that already. No. She shook her head. They don't just know Raven. She placed the photograph beside the transmitter. They've been watching Mara. The commander picked up the photograph. When was this taken? 3 days ago. He stared at it. That's before the attack. Yes. He looked at Mara. Then they were tracking you specifically. Mara nodded. Exactly. The commander sat down. For the first time that night, he looked genuinely concerned. We need to move you. Mara shook her head. No. Why? Because that's what they want. He stared at her. If they are targeting you, leaving you here is dangerous. I know. Then why stay? Mara pointed toward the photograph. Because they believe I will run. The commander understood. You want them to 3 years ago? Yes. Then why is he here? Mara pointed to the bottom of the photograph. A date. Yesterday. The commander stared. Someone had photographed the dead man's former residence only 1 day earlier. Mara watched him. This isn't just about Daniel. No. It isn't even about me. The commander slowly looked up. It's about the unit. Mara nodded. Someone is trying to reopen something we thought was finished. The commander looked toward the door. What? Mara didn't answer. She didn't know yet. But she had a feeling. And Mara had learned long ago never to ignore a feeling when the evidence was still incomplete. The next morning, the hospital opened as usual. Patients arrived. Doctors came to work. Families sat in waiting rooms. Nobody outside knew how much had happened during the previous 24 hours. Mara returned to the medication station. She wore clean scrubs. Her hair was tied back. She looked like the same quiet nurse everyone had known before the attack. Dr. Harlan walked toward her. He stopped. Mara. She looked up. Doctor. I heard about last night. Mara nodded. Yes. Are you okay? I've fine. Harlan hesitated. Then he said something Mara didn't expect. I don't think I ever really knew you. Mara looked at him. No. He nodded. I suppose that's my fault. Mara didn't respond. Harlan looked around. Do you know something else? What? I spent years thinking I understood people because I could read medical charts. Mara waited. I thought that if I knew someone's symptoms, I knew something about them. He gave a small laugh. But yesterday taught me that a chart doesn't tell you who someone is. Mara smiled slightly. That's true. Harlan nodded. I owe you more than an apology. Mara looked at him. You don't owe me anything. Ido. No. She returned to her work. Just treat the next person you meet with a little more patience. Harlan stood silently. Then he nodded. I will. He walked away. Mara watched him leave. She didn't hate him. She didn't forgive him completely either. She simply let the moment pass. Because she had bigger problems now. At 9:15 a.m., Lily approached her. Mara. Mara looked up. What is it? Someone asked for you. Who? A man. What man? I don't know. Lily handed her a piece of paper. Mara looked at it. A room number. Room 309. Mara knew the room. It had been empty for months. She looked at Lily. Did he say his name? No. What did he look like? Older. Gray hair. Dark coat. Mara's expression changed. Did he say anything else? Lily shook her head. Just that you would know why he was here. Mara folded the paper. Stay here. Where are you going? Room 309. Lily looked nervous. Shouldn't you tell security? Mara smiled. Yes. She walked away. But she didn't tell security. Not yet. She already knew someone wanted her to go there. And she wanted to know why. Room 309 was at the far end of an unused hallway. The lights were dim. The corridor smelled like disinfectant. Mara walked slowly. She reached the door. It was slightly open. She pushed it. The room was empty. No man. No child. No back. Nothing. Then the door behind her closed. Mara turned. A voice came from the corner. You really haven't changed. Mara looked toward the darkness. A man stepped into the light. Gray hair. Dark coat. Calm expression. Mara stared at him. She knew him. Not personally. But from a photograph. He had been part of her former world. A man she believed was dead. Mara whispered his name. Adrian Valley. The man smiled. Hello, Raven. Mara's entire body became still. Adrian stepped closer. You look older. So do you. He laughed. I was told you were dead. I was. Mara stared. What? To the right people. She didn't move. Adrian continued. Your old unit believed I died 3 years ago. You disappeared. Yes. Why? Because someone was killing everyone who knew what really happened. Mara's eyes narrowed. What happened? Adrian looked at her. Your last operation. Mara's expression changed. She remembered. A warehouse. Then. A convoy. A witness. En explosion. People screaming. Her team disappearing one by one. The official report had said the operation failed because of an information leak. But Mara had never believed that explanation. She had left the unit soon afterward. Adrian watched her. You always knew something was wrong. Mara nodded. I knew. You just didn't know how deep it went. Tell me. Adrian shook his head. Not here. Mara looked around. Then where? He reached into his coat. Mara immediately shifted her stance. Adrian noticed. He smiled. Still cautious. Still alive. He pulled out a small memory device. He placed it on the table. This contains everything. Mara looked at it. Everything about what? The leak. Mara's heart tightened. Who betrayed us? Adrian didn't answer. He simply said, someone you trusted. Mara stared at him. Who? Adrian looked toward the door. You're not alone. Mara turned. The hallway outside was empty. She looked back. Adrian was gone. Only the memory device remained. Mara picked it up. A message appeared on the small screen. Trust no one. Then another message appeared. Especially the person standing closest to you. Mara slowly looked through the glass window in the door. Lily was standing at the other end of the hallway, watching her. Mara's expression changed. For the first time since the entire nightmare began. She wondered if she had made a mistake. Was Lily simply a frightened young nurse? Or had someone placed her there deliberately? Mara didn't know. And that uncertainty was more dangerous than any armed attacker. She slipped the memory device into her pocket. Then she walked toward Lily. Lily smiled nervously. Did you find him? Mara stopped. Who? The man. Mara stared at her. You knew there was a man? Lily's face changed. I thought you told me. I didn't. Silence. Lily looked frightened. Mara studied her carefully. Who told you? Lily opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Her face went pale. Mara saw the number. No name. Unknown caller. Lily answered. Hello. A voice spoke. Mara couldn't hear the words. But Lily's expression told her everything. Fear. Real fear. Lily slowly lowered the phone. Mara asked. Who was that? Lily whispered. They said. She swallowed. They said if I tell you anything, you'll die. Mara looked at her. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Mara stepped closer. Tell me. Lily shook her head. No. Lily. I can't. You can. They have my family. Mara's expression softened. Now she understood. Lily wasn't the enemy. She was being controlled. Mara took her hand. Look at me. Lily did. We're going to get them back. Lily began crying. But how? Mara looked toward the hallway. First, we find out who is giving the orders. She looked at the memory device in her pocket. And then we find out why they came after me. The hospital doors opened downstairs. A new person entered. Mara couldn't see the face from where she stood. But she recognized the walk. The same controlled movement. The same careful steps. The same confidence. Someone from her past had arrived. And this time, Mara was ready. She had spent years hiding. She had spent years pretending she was ordinary. But now the truth was out. And the people hunting her had made one final mistake. They had given her a reason to stop running. Mara looked at Lily. Stay close to me. Lily nodded. Mara looked down the corridor. Then she whispered, let's finish this. And somewhere in the hospital, a hidden camera quietly recorded everything. The person watching smiled. Because the trap was finally working. But they didn't know one thing. Mara had already realized that she wasn't the one trapped inside the hospital. They were.